It's very important that you hire your spouse and your children. There's some incredible deductions and tax advantages to doing so. You would pay your spouse a minimum wage and hire them perhaps just half-time. What I learned was that my wife hired me to help her, and she hired our two boys. And we had a contract, and we had different types of projects we could do, and I think it averaged out where we would work 2 hours a day. Had to be real work that we actually did, and we kept a time chart of what we did and when we did it, and what time the hours that we spent, and so what happened was, as an employee of her business, I had to pay taxes on that salary. It wasn't very much, but I had to do quarterly payments and pay taxes and all that kind of stuff. And since the children were older than 6 and under 18, we had to file a quarterly report, but they didn't have to pay any taxes. And so what that meant was they were earning wages for work done, and that was a good thing. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But in my case, what happens is that my wife, who is my boss, and it doesn't matter, you can both have a position in Manatech, and one can hire the other to help build their position. And the husband can hire the wife can hire the husband, and you still have your own positions. But we figured one presidential was worth more than 2 executives or 2 nationals. So we really concentrated on building my wife's position to bronze presidential and beyond that. And that proved to have been a wise thing to do. So in her case, she hired me. Well, as her employee, she could extend to me all sorts of wonderful employee benefits. It's called the Self-Insured Medical Reimbursement Program, and this document will also be available at weeksglobal.com. These wonderful employee benefits, especially the medical premiums, the medical insurance, medical coverage, which can be so expensive. Now that was a business expense to her business. She could deduct that as an expense, which would increase her profit, her revenue, and at the same time lower her taxes. And so what happened there was a copay, and maybe the hot tub or the jacuzzi or the eyeglasses or the dental work or whatever the case may be, was now a business expense, and we could write those off as on our taxes. And this applied to her too, because she was my husband. She was my wife. So she hired me and extended to me these medical benefits that applied to me and my family, which of course included her. So now all of her stuff is covered that way too. And it has to be set up properly, of course. Everything has to be documented and done right. But it's legal, it's ethical, and it'll save thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Now back to the kids. The kids, you don't want to pay them allowance. That's not a tax deduction, so you want to hire them. And the reason is because they can make up to, in my case, my kids could make, I think it was like $5,700 each, and they wouldn't pay any taxes on any amounts up to that total, and we wouldn't pay any taxes on it either, because it would be a business expense. It lowers our pre-tax income by transferring this money to our kids as wages for real work done. And so, what you do is the first thing you have to do is you got to get an EIN number, an employee identification number, and you can go to irs.gov, and or you can actually call up. The number is 1-800-829-4933, and you would fill it all out, and then they will give you an EIN number, a federal ID number. And then you have a contract, you hire your kids, you hire your spouse, and then they start working, and you document it, and you pay them wages. Now, in the case of our children, they're under age 18, and so we set up a joint checking account in a bank, and all the wages that they earned go into that bank account, and then we can spend it as we see fit. During the Great Depression, the whole family was out selling apples or whatever they could do to raise money, and whatever money came in could be used for the mortgage, could be used for food, could be used for paying bills. Our only obligation as parents is to put a roof over the heads of our children and give them food and give them clothing, and anything beyond that is discretionary. And so all this money that they're earning goes into this joint checking account, and then out of that account you pay for piano lessons, you pay for gymnastics lessons, you pay for Christian school tuition, you pay for weddings, you pay for, whatever it is, because none of that stuff is a tax deduction. You can't deduct Christian school tuition, you can't deduct piano lessons or guitar lessons or gymnastic lessons. So what you do is you pay for it with money that's already been deducted as wages. And so in a sense, all this stuff becomes a tax deduction. And so there's some huge advantages in hiring your spouse, and the details you need to talk with your expert about, the tax expert about, and find out, but at least you know what kind of questions to ask. Because if you have 4 kids and you're paying each of them like $5,000 each, and you don't come up with this money ahead of time, it's the money you're going to be spending anyhow. This isn't new money. The money you would be spending on piano lessons, the money you'd be spending on tuition and all this other stuff, you pay that money to your kids first as wages, and then you pay those bills. And that way you can write off those amounts because they're wages, business expenses. So it's not new money. It's the same money you're going to be spending anyhow. Why not do it in such a fashion that you can take it as a deduction? And so that really, that really adds up. So get together with your tax expert and find out about the self-insured medical reimbursement program. So all your medical expenses now are covered, and all these other expenses that your kids, your expensive basketball shoes and everything else, they now can indirectly be a tax deduction as well.